Hi guys. So, a few days ago was March 15th, very notably the birthday of an absolute icon, the queen herself, Naoko Takeuchi. As you may know, Naoko is the author and illustrator of the Sailor Moon manga, which you probably don't need me to tell you has since become nothing short of a worldwide phenomenon. I actually made a video over Sailor Moon dolls a while back in November of 2021, but that was specifically over the American Sailor Moon dolls and the kind of a weird advertising and marketing that surrounded Sailor Moon's import to America. It was actually one of my favorite videos I've ever done because I loved researching it, and as Sailor Moon is definitely one of my favorite shows. It's incredibly nostalgic and formative to my childhood and adulthood too. I still love Sailor Moon. So ever since making that video, I've always wanted to make another video over Sailor Moon dolls, but I could never figure out a reason, I guess, a specific topic. But then it hit me. I don't really need a specific topic. I can just share the dolls and talk about them, and that's exactly what we're going to do today. Also, the world of Sailor Moon fashion dolls is a bit overwhelming and a little bit confusing, especially if you're a beginner collector. A lot of the more dedicated databases have actually since went offline, so I thought maybe it would just be helpful to have all this information in one place, if nothing else, just for reference purposes. I do want to say, I'm probably not gonna hit every single Sailor Moon doll that ever existed. It's a 30-year-old franchise that has been imported to several different countries, and unfortunately not all of the merchandise produced was extremely well documented. But I do want to shout out to the archival websites that really helped out with my research in this video. So that would be SailorMoonCollectibles.com, SailorMoonToysCollection.com, MoonSisters.org, and the website BobaGirl.com, which is now sadly one of those that are defunct, but she's noted for being one of the very first archives of Sailor Moon dolls, so absolutely check these sites out if you want to look at not only dolls, but great archives of Sailor Moon merchandise in general. So yeah, I guess this is a pretty self-explanatory video. Just gonna go through the Sailor Moon dolls. Obviously, there's quite a lot to get through, so let's go ahead and get into it. The very first official Sailor Moon doll was released in 1992 for the first season of the anime, in Japan, obviously, by Bandai, who, as we'll see, is the primary manufacturer of Sailor Moon dolls for Japan. She's really more of a figure with a removable outfit, as her hair is molded plastic, so are her gloves, and she was actually the only doll produced for the first season, which I guess kind of makes sense. You know, it was still pretty early on in the franchise, but it wouldn't be until the second season, Sailor Moon R, that we got to see the other characters. So for Sailor Moon R, they produced dolls for all of the inner senshi, or warriors, or scouts, whatever you're inclined to call them. They were the standard 11 inches tall, also by Bandai, and are pretty much the baseline for all future Bandai Sailor Moon dolls. I think these are really cute, and pretty show accurate too. Impressive for any kind of toy line in the early 90s, really. As with almost every other Sailor Moon doll, however, they didn't try to recreate her hairstyle, which I can't really blame them for. Their faces are also a little simplistic, especially compared to some of the future dolls, but for the first really full-on doll line for Sailor Moon, they're pretty well done, I think. Something that I've found was pretty common with the Sailor Moon dolls, though, is that their clothes are often a little baggy, like they were made almost too large. But it must have been intentional because it's something that persists for basically the entire time Bandai made Sailor Moon dolls. Also, another thing you'll see a few times with Venus specifically is that I guess they just didn't want to bother with tying her ribbon into her hair, so they actually just put her hair into a ponytail. And I also want you guys to pay special attention to the Mercury dolls, because they try several different ways of getting her short hair to look right on a doll, and there are some Varying results. Also, for Sailor Moon R, they made a Neo Queen Serenity doll. Not the best Serenity doll I've seen, but again, a pretty good first attempt. Especially since I'm sure that just wasn't an easy design to try and translate onto a playline doll in the 90s. Also, there was a line of the inners in their school uniforms, which were also available separately as fashion packs, including Rei's Miko outfit, and also a Chibiusa doll, also in her uniform. And another thing you'll see with Chibiusa dolls specifically, they didn't really have a way to recreate her hair buns, so they're just these big plastic hair baubles in the shape of her buns. And then we get into the third season, Sailor Moon S. Also from Bandai, we get a line of dolls called Suki Suki, which are the girls in casual clothing. They're pretty simple and I think only somewhat reference from actual outfits in the show. Like, Makoto is just wearing this hideous green felt romper, as if she doesn't have some of the best casual outfits in the anime. The Sailor Senshi dolls this season were called Sailor Team dolls, and there were basically two versions. There was a regular version, which were pretty similar to the dolls from Sailor Moon R, and then there were the excellent Sailor Team dolls, which had outfits made from metallic fabric, and also came in, like, I guess you'd call it a shoebox style, kind of what you'd see in a lot of adult collector dolls today. There was also a talking Sailor Moon doll, the first of many to come. A doll of Usagi in a wedding dress. At least two I could find that were of Sailor Moon that came with an extra casual outfit. And also two Chibiusa dolls, this time in her Sailor Chibi Moon form. One regular release, and one called the Nakayoshi Chibi Moon, or the baby face Chibi Moon doll. This one obviously is more in the sort of baby doll style. Other characters to get dolls for this season, we have the very first Tuxedo Mask doll, who even came with little roses, which I think is a really nice touch. They also did make dolls of the outer Senshi 2, minus Hotaru. So we have Sailor Uranus, serving Bob. My personal favorite character, Sailor Neptune. Her doll is really gorgeous, of course. And Sailor Pluto, who, interestingly, was given a darker skin tone in her doll, which I know she did have a slightly darker skin tone in the anime, but it was pretty inconsistent, and you didn't really see that reflected in a lot of the merchandise. She also has the wrong outfit colors, and that's true for a lot of Sailor Pluto dolls. I'm pretty sure the Irwin doll is actually the only playline Pluto to ever have gotten her outfit colors right, but I am getting a little bit ahead of myself. And now once we get to 1995 with Sailor Moon Supers, this is when Bandai really goes all in on these talking dolls. There was a series of dolls called Caratalk, and there were two main lines of these. One of the inners in outfits pretty similar to the excellent Sailor Team dolls from the last year, except now they talk. They each had three phrases, quotes from the show basically that they cycled through. They also had a function where basically you could use a wand toy that worked like a remote control that could make them talk as well. Then there was another line of Caratalk dolls, also of the inners but in their super forms now. I can literally only imagine what it must have been like to be an American Sailor Moon fan in the 90s, trying to collect and catalog these dolls, how frustrating that must have been. And to add on to those, there was also another Sailor Team release, this one going back to the basics with the simpler, less embellished outfits, and including another Tuxedo Mask doll, but with a slightly different face and hairstyle from the last one. But Sailor Chibi Moon also got a Caratalk doll, along with a regular Sailor Team doll. And now a doll for Sailor Saturn too, this one under the excellent Sailor Team line, though exactly what the difference is at this point, I couldn't really tell you. And there were also two more Nakayoshi or babyface dolls, this time of Super Sailor Chibi Moon and now Super Sailor Moon as well. There were also dolls made for the Amazon Quartet, pretty significant because they seem to be the only Bandai dolls made for characters that were villains. And Of all the characters, they definitely picked ones who had designs that were the most difficult to translate onto dolls. They're cute, but they do look a little goofy. Once we get to the last season, Sailor Moon Stars, the big line for that year was the Beauty Change series. And this line included basically everyone, except for Chibi Moon. So they all came with an extra dress, a casual outfit that was meant to go over their Sailor Senshi outfits, and they were easily removed, so you could just rip them off basically to simulate their transformation. And the only thing about these is that their Sailor outfits look like significantly lower quality than past dolls. Like, the bows look like they're made literally out of felt paper, I'm pretty sure. But they are more gimmicky dolls, and hey, they did do a much better job in Uranus's hair this time around. The Sailor Starlights also got dolls in this line too, who actually also came with dresses, even though they're supposed to be male in their civilian forms. But I guess that just came down to logistics. It's probably just much easier to tear away a dress than a full pantsuit. Another big line during this season were the Dream Pocket dolls. So these were 6-inch dolls, and this line also basically included every single Sailor Senshi, including the Starlights again. They all came with these small, clear plastic bags, and as the name suggests, it was a little pocket for you to carry them around in. The smaller scale, I think, works for some characters more than others. Like Sailor Moon and the Inners, they all look incredibly adorable, but like Uranus and Neptune, who are meant to be older, they do look a little bit silly in this style. There was another Caratalk doll released for Eternal Sailor Moon, and another doll called Excellent Pose Sailor Moon. Her facial style is a little different from the past Sailor Moon dolls. She actually looks a quite bit more mature, and she's advertised to be fully posable. I'm not certain, because I don't have her, but her limbs are probably pliable with wires inside of them. We're not quite at the time of Barbie made-to-move bodies just yet. And although Sailor Moon Stars would be the last season of the anime, we're not quite done with the Japanese dolls. In 1999, there were dolls released for the Sailor Moon musicals. There was a release of Eternal Sailor Moon in her musical outfit by herself, one where she comes with an extra outfit, a doll of Chibi Moon with an extra outfit, and the other characters were primarily sold in box sets. So there was a set of the Inners as 11-inch dolls, one of them as 6-inch dolls, and another of the Outers also as 6-inch dolls. Apparently, for whatever reason, most of the Sailor Mars and Sailor Jupiter dolls from this set, and both the 11-inch and the 6-inch ones, their hair, something went terribly wrong in the factories, and now it's extremely common for their hair to just degrade and fall out completely, even when they're left in the box. And they'd continue to release 6-inch dolls in the mini collection. These had more of that really shiny fabric, and at first they came with extra school uniforms and little accessories, but by the time they got to the Outers, they downgraded them, so they come in smaller boxes and only have one outfit. And again, I just think they do look a little strange on the smaller scale, except Hotaru. She does look pretty cute. Then, in 2003, they released dolls for Pretty Guardian Sailor Moon, the live-action series, which, if you haven't seen yet, absolutely check it out. Hands down, one of my all-time favorites. And these are still very, I don't know if cartoony would be the right word, anime-esque, I guess, but more based on the live-action show, so they all have brown eyes, and aside from Mercury, more natural hair colors. There was also a doll for Sailor Luna, who is, of course, a character exclusive to the live-action series. So now we can start talking about dolls made for the American market. Again, I do have an entire video over this, so I'm not going to go off on a tangent, but basically, Bandai America was responsible for the toys once Sailor Moon was imported to America through the English dub in 1995, but they didn't want to just repackage the Japanese dolls. Sailor Moon's marketing in America early on was weird. It made a big point of appealing to boys just as much as girls, so they wanted to avoid making the dolls too soft or too feminine. They would even call them adventure dolls as opposed to fashion dolls. Another layer was that a lot of the toys for the American market were left over from prototypes and designs that were actually made for the failed Toon Maker's Sailor Moon pilot, which reimagined Sailor Moon as a completely different show starring American teenagers and was a hybrid of live action and traditional animation. So if you're still wondering where on earth the moon cycle came from, there you go. But all that contributed to the first run of Bandai's American Sailor Moon dolls being, for lack of a better word, ugly. In fact, they're even widely referred to as the ugly face dolls. So Bandai would release a line of deluxe 12-inch dolls of all the inners, and then a line of 6-inch dolls which included the same characters and also Queen Beryl. Notably, these dolls had incorrect shoes. They all had knee-high boots. And this was actually, apparently, a deliberate decision made out of fear that an American market would find heeled pumps too sexually provocative? I don't know. But very shortly afterwards, Bandai would hand the reins over to a Canadian-based toy company, Irwin Toys. And Irwin would start by re-releasing Bandai's dolls in new packaging, then in different clothes and more accurate shoes, a line of 17-inch dolls that had slightly improved faces, and then Irwin would give the dolls their own face mold a few years later in the year 2000, now known as the Pretty Face to collectors, which is to say it looks a lot better than Bandai's. I do actually have some of the Irwin dolls. I'm sure you've noticed them right over there. I've been asked a few times to give a closer look at them, which I will, but not in this video. I'm actually waiting for a certain something that should be here pretty soon, so stay tuned. Irwin would also be actually a little more open towards making dolls of villains. So there were even dolls of characters like Wicked Lady, the Negamoon family, so Rubius, Emerald, Diamond, Professor Tomoe, and Kaori Knight. Irwin would, of course, also make dolls of the Outers, first with the Bandai molds, and then later on with the Pretty Face. And these would have another updated facial screening, one that was way more detailed and way more accurate to the anime. So these are, by far, the prettiest dolls in the American run. Also, congratulations to Irwin for getting Sailor Pluto's colors correct. Even though for some reason earlier on you released the most incorrect version of her possible, but you got there, and that's what's important. Which, a fun fact about these, they actually released the Outer dolls in 1997, before they officially appeared in the English dub, and before they were given names. And the little booklets packaged with the dolls, it actually identified them as Corinne, Nerissa, and Celia. And there would be a few other dolls with this updated screening, a casual Serena doll, and another Wicked Lady doll too. There's also a few unproduced items from Irwin. There was a doll who was, I guess, like a combination of Super Sailor Moon and Eternal Sailor Moon, a Queen Helenia doll, and a line of the girls in their casual outfits, including Rei in her Miko outfit, which is interesting. Like we saw, Serena from this line did actually get produced though, or at least the outfit. It was included in a 2-pack with Sailor Mini-Moon. Outside of Japan and America, probably the most significant country for Sailor Moon dolls is Italy, where we find the extremely iconic toy company Giochi Preziosi. And the Italian dolls are interesting because they weren't really interested in being like incredibly accurate, but I think at the same time they also really understood their audience because they were just having fun with it. Like, for example, they released a bunch of these fashion packs that have literally absolutely no basis in the source material or reality in general, but they're so sparkly and poofy and wonderfully 90s. Like, how could I possibly be mad at them? But as far as dolls go, there was a really gorgeous Serenity doll, a dancing Sailor Moon doll. They had dolls modeled after sky dancers, chibi moon dolls, one speaking and one regular, that were on a taller body, which was not like a budget thing, because they also had a smaller chibi moon packaged with Pegasus. And as far as the standard dolls go, they're very similar facially and proportion-wise to the Bandai dolls from Japan, but there are some pretty subtle differences. And I think the Italian dolls are so cute, so adorable. I really wish Bandai America had just done something similar and just tweaked the Japanese face molds a little, and we got dolls like these instead. So I'm kind of jealous. If you are an Italian Sailor Moon fan watching this and you grew up when these dolls were being released, absolutely let me know how much fun you were having. Giochi Preziosi would also release their version of the Beauty Change dolls from Bandai Japan with the same gimmick, but obviously different outfits. Actually, cuter ones, might I add. Though unfortunately it doesn't look like they ever got around to making dolls for the Outers. I like to think they would have done them justice, though. In 2011, when Sailor Moon started re-airing in Italy, Giochi Preziosi took advantage of this and released a new line of Sailor Moon dolls in a completely different style from their past dolls. These are about 9 inches tall, and although they printed the gloves on, I think these have incredibly adorable faces. And they actually attempted to style Sailor Moon's hair buns correctly, so points for that. But of course, we also need to talk about the collector's dolls. First, probably the most ubiquitous are the pull-up dolls, and I'm not going to go over every single one of these because they've made basically every single character they possibly could at this point, and they've been doing so since 2014 with the very first Sailor Moon pull-up doll. Special editions of these would often include a second outfit, their school uniform, or just some extra accessory. And these are cute. I'm not incredibly familiar with pull-ups. I only just pre-ordered my first one a few months ago, and I'm still waiting on it to ship. But I'd guess your enjoyment of these hinges entirely on how much you like the pull-up style with the very exaggerated proportions. Volks also made a line of Sailor Moon Dolphies, and these were classified as Dolphy Dream Sisters, so that means they're about 20 inches tall and have a slightly smaller figure than the standard Dolphy Dream. The first one, Sailor Moon, she was released in 2017, 2018, I think. Which, if you don't know, Dolphys are pretty high-end collectible ball-jointed dolls, and these specifically retailed for around $600, $700 US. As of right now, they've only made the 5 inner senshi, and they're beautiful, obviously. They're incredibly gorgeous. Since they're at a much larger scale, they're able to recreate the outfits and the hairstyles incredibly well. I try not to get too entranced by them because I only have so much money, unfortunately. But they've also released a few different outfits for them too, such as their school uniforms and a Super Sailor Moon outfit as well. In 2019, Bandai kind of surprised us all by dropping a new Sailor Moon doll for Universal Studios Japan, which led to some speculation maybe we were finally getting more Sailor Moon dolls. We had to wait a few years for confirmation, but it was true. In mid-2021, Bandai would launch a new line of Sailor Moon style dolls. Well, really just one doll at first of Super Sailor Moon. They would also release a Princess Serenity doll and a white-haired version for the Sailor Moon Museum and a Super Sailor Chibi Moon. They also more recently announced dolls for the 4 inner senshi, which I may or may not have ordered and am anxiously waiting for them to ship so that I may film a certain video. Who can say? Maybe you should subscribe and stay tuned if that interests you at all. I don't know. But I do really like these. I think they resemble the Bandai Japan dolls in the sense they're like modern updates of those almost. I don't have Sailor Moon yet, But I have watched unboxings and such, and I think they did a really good job on her, so I can't wait. But yeah, obviously that doesn't cover every single Sailor Moon doll that ever existed, but I think it should give you a good idea of the world of Sailor Moon dolls in general. And if you happen to look any of these up on eBay, I'm sorry in advance, and good luck. But I hope you enjoyed the video. If you love Sailor Moon as much as I do, be sure to tell me all about it. Did you have any Sailor Moon dolls as a kid? Do you collect Sailor Moon dolls currently? Absolutely let me know. And when you're done with all that, just be sure to like and subscribe for any future fashion doll content. Thank you.